Today's video, I'm going to be going over helping a 16-year-old who lives in Southeast Michigan who wants to get into a skilled trade, wants to build a career in the blue-collar world. He's just not sure what trade is for him. So today we're going to be discovering the options of what's out there for him, especially in Southeast Michigan, the Ann Arbor or the Detroit area, which is very heavy industrial, commercial, a lot of residential as well. In that area, a lot of blue-collar work there, a lot of skilled trades, a lot of career opportunities. So I'm going to try to help him build, kind of a blueprint, get some framework for him, maybe some steps that he can do. Once he graduates high school, he has a good idea of what he should do or what he should be looking for, and just help him overall get a better idea of the career options in the blue collar world in Southeast Michigan. Oh, welcome back to episode CTQ, episode 37, I believe, of CTQ. CTQ is a segment I do on the channel called Cruise the Questions, and this is where I take your guys' questions and I answer them here to help you guys on your blue-collar career pathways. You guys can submit your questions a few different ways. One of the best ways is if you go to bluecollaredu.com and go in the top right corner, there's a contact tab. Put your question in there, and I get those directly to my inbox, so I see all those questions. Another good way is if you just email me, austin@bluecollaredu.com, or you can put them in the comments down below, and I'll take questions from the YouTube comments. If you want to find me on social media at bluecollaredu, TikTok or Instagram as well, I'll see questions on there. I'm not super active on TikTok or social as far as like looking at the messages. I know I need to be better, but hey, we are all busy in our own lives. Husband, I'm a father, and whatever, work full time. So with all that being said, if you guys find value from this episode or any videos on this channel, hey, give me a like, give me a subscribe, share this if you think someone else would find education from this content. You know what I mean? With Blue Collar EDU, just here to expose, teach, and educate you guys about blue collar career opportunities, how to get started in the skilled trades, and a few other nuggets, piece of advice, and things that would just help people getting started ground level, trying to bridge that gap from not knowing to having a good idea. There's a lot of unknowns, especially if you are someone who has no relatives or no family members or no one in the skilled trades, but you want to pursue a career in the skilled trades. I'm trying to help you here. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I know enough people and enough trades to get the answers for you. So with all that being said, let's hop into this question. This question is coming from a young man named Hayden. He says, "Hey Austin, 16-year-old junior in high school who lives in Southeast Michigan. I'm wondering what trade career I should pursue. I've heard many things on these career options like plumber, electrician, HVAC, or lineman, but I'm wondering which one, in your opinion, is the best option for things like difficulty to get in, stability, potential OT, and overall ability to make a solid, comfortable living. I personally don't have much of a preference for any of these careers, just probably going to go into one that where I can get work honestly, LOL. I really look forward from hearing from you. Thanks for your time, sir." You're welcome, Hayden. So I want to break this down. I want to try to give you, a good framework. I want to give you some options. I've done a research. I've got my notepad of things written down. I've asked some people that I know who live in Michigan, who work in the trades, and I want to break down salaries, the stability, the barrier to entry, which trades are probably the easiest to get into. I have a whole rank list here for you guys so you can maybe have a better understanding, and you can do your own further research too on your own, because I can tell you a lot on the video, but I also think it's important for you guys to do your own research from what I give you, because like I said, I'm not perfect and I don't have all the answers. So luckily we all have a phone and internet access that we can, really go out there. And one little tidbit of advice, kind of off topic, but this will help you guys a lot. And I do this to be honest too as well, is like if I'm looking for real answers, like real knowledge from people who are in the field working in these different trades, I typically go on Google, or if you have the Reddit app, and I just type in, let's say I want to be an HVAC technician. I'll literally type in becoming HVAC technician in Detroit, Michigan, and I'll put Reddit at the end of whatever my question is. And then Google pops up all the Reddit threads that are people, real people on there commenting, hey, it's community of people. And that can be for any trade or really anything. I think Reddit's a great place to do that. You know what I mean? Like they're real answers, and you're going to get a bunch of different information on there from people that are boots on the ground. We are looking at trades. I know you mentioned HVAC, plumbing, lineman, electrician. Of course, those are big four ones, and each one of those have their own sectors, right? Like electrician has industrial, commercial, residential. Same with HVAC, same with plumbing. We can look at plumbers. Also, pipe fitting is a big trade in that Southeast Michigan area, the Ann Arbor and Detroit area. Lineman's a big one. Ironworker is another big one. Sheet metal is another big one. So there's a lot of different trades, and they all have to work together really to get a job done when it comes down to it, especially when it comes to the big commercial and industrial projects. So I have kind of a ranking list here, and I'm just going to go down, starting with number one, which is going to be good stability. Barrier to entry is pretty easy from my research. The pay is pretty good. Especially a lot of these are going to be based off kind of union scales, union wages, union apprenticeships, and things like that. Of course, it's the whole non-union sector as well. Michigan, especially in that southeast area, is a pretty big, strong union area. So I think the union is going to be a pretty good bet for a lot of you who might live in that area and they're like, hey, I want to get into a trade in Southeast Michigan. So starting with the first trade, I actually have carpentry. Now, carpentry is going to be probably one of your easiest barriers to entry if you're wanting to get into a trade. And when you're looking at union carpentry, my older brother is a union journeyman carpenter. He went through a union carpentry apprenticeship in the Northwest. And a lot of things that they do is concrete forming, like the big concrete walls and big concrete pours for these industrial and commercial buildings. So that I know is a lot. That's not the only thing that they do in the carpentry apprenticeship, but there is a lot of concrete in those sorts of things. With that being said, it's not very, I think, desirable for a lot of people to do carpentry, but the barrier to entry because of that is easier. I don't think that there's an aptitude test what I could find to get into carpentry, especially a carpentry apprenticeship, like some of the other trades that I'll explain here. But if you look up Local 687, Carpenters Union Local 687, which is covering that whole southeast district of Michigan, I would look for an apprenticeship there. And it's not super competitive like I was mentioning. And to look at the scale and the wages, because obviously that's very important. You look at stability, you're looking at the cost of living and how much money you can make in the trade. As of January 16th of 2025 this year, journeyman carpenters on 40 hours a week are making roughly $82,220 a year. That's roughly starting out, if you do the math on 40 hours a week, usually it's starting out at 60% of journeyman rate in most unions, most apprenticeships as a first step apprentice, and you'll be making roughly $50,000 a year as a first step. So if you're 18 years old and you get into this, and that pay only goes up, right? You first step, second step, first period, second period. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's a 6 or 7 step period apprenticeship. You only make money as time goes on in the 3, 4, 5 years it takes you. So eventually you'll get up to the journeyman rate, and on 40 hours a week, you could expect to make roughly almost $83,000 a year. That's not accounting for the OT. A lot of the Reddit threads, a lot of the things that I've seen on my research is that there is overtime potential in the carpentry union, in the carpentry trade in Southeast Michigan. So if you're looking to make more money, I can see that potential to definitely be making over 6 figures a year. And if you look at the cost of living and the average income in that area, $82,000 is well above that average income, and the cost of living, the stability, the comfortness that you can experience, I think is pretty good. So the first trade that's going to be probably a pretty good option that you can consider is carpentry. So moving on to the second trade I have here is HVAC tech. Now this is going to be a moderate competitive trade to get into. HVAC being money's going to really be in the commercial and industrial area. And if you get into an HVAC union apprenticeship, that's more so what they're going to be doing is that industrial, commercial, that big, heavy, the important stuff in the HVAC industry. And if we look at the union there, we have local UA, which is United Associations Union 190, 636, and 98. So if you look up any one of those UA locals, on the internet in your area. You can go on their websites and they're going to have a bunch of information for you to learn about that trade, how to get started applying and things like that. So, and if we look at the salary, they roughly make, from my research, $43 an hour as a journeyman. And if you do that on a 40-hour work week, you're roughly making $89,000 a year on 40 hours of work week, which is a little bit more than carpenters, but that barrier to entry, I think, is a little bit more competitive. I believe there is an aptitude test that you're going to get tested on math and mechanical reasoning, but you being straight out of high school, I think you probably might be all right on the math portion. The mechanical reasoning stuff, I'm not exactly sure what that looks like on the aptitude test, but that's also something that I could easily call one of those locals and just ask them about that aptitude test, and I'm sure they're going to give you the information you need so you could practice for the aptitude test. So moving on to trade number 3 that's a good candidate for you is plumbing/pipe fitting. This is also a moderate, competitive, and less selective trade to get into, but I know there's a lot of money to be made, and plumbers and pipe fitters are always needed. Plumbing and pipe fitting, they kind of go hand in hand, but they're the same but different in their own aspects. Pipe fitting is usually like more of like the industrial commercial side. My dad's a union pipe fitter at a lumber mill in the town I grew up in. And the same thing, you can look at UA Local 98, 636, and 190. It's the same union as HVAC technician. And if we look at the salary, the wages for journeymen, pipe fitters, plumbers, we'll look at about $37.05 an hour, which equals to about $77,000 a year. So less than HVAC and less than carpentry, according to my research. There is an aptitude test, just like the HVAC tech. You're going to have the math, you're going to have the mechanical reasoning, so you're going to have that kind of hurdle to part of the barrier to entry to getting into that union apprenticeship as well. Not to mention these things, you can always find residential or non-union open shops that might be looking for a laborer, a helper, or even maybe they offer some sort of apprenticeship as well. And it might be a little bit easier barrier to entry. A lot of the times the non-union open shops don't have an aptitude test. So that literally goes in with just like finding those like plumbing or HVAC companies near you and just calling and seeing, is there opportunity out there for you to do that as well. That's going to be skilled trade number 3 for you to look into is plumbing/pipe fitters. We're looking on to number 4. The trade is electricians. Very competitive. From my research, I found that this is a pretty competitive trade to get into with the IBW in that southeast region and Harbor in Detroit. The aptitude test is very common for IBW electricians and linemen across the country. That's going to be math. It's going to be reading comprehension. It's basic algebra and like mechanical reasoning and reading comprehension as well. There's test preps out there that you can take. IBW test prep or iPrep is like a big one that a lot of guys or people will, invest a little bit of time and money into to learn and take practice tests about these IBW tests. If we look up IBW Local 58 or 252, those are going to be the 2 IBW halls in the Ann Arbor, Detroit, Southeast Michigan area that you can look into, go on their website, do some more research, look it up, ask Reddit, look up IBW 58 or 252 on Reddit and see what people have to say about that as far as becoming an electrician. If we look at the salary or the wages for electricians on 40 hours a week, we're looking at about $37.05 an hour, which equals to about $77,000 a year on a 40-hour work week. Not to mention, these are union too, so your benefits and your retirement and all that, your total package is going to be more than that. You can go on unionpayscales.com and you can look up these different trades that have unions and see what those wages and scales look like, the benefits that go with it. So that's a good resource for you guys who are looking to get into a union apprenticeship or looking to get into a union. You can see those union scales and those benefits that are included if you go to that website. I use that website all the time to see what's out there. And they also post like how recent that contract or how recent those wages were in effect. So yeah, number 4 for competitiveness, like it's going to be harder. It's more competitive, but there is really good stability with that. And I know electricians anywhere in the country, you could go anywhere and work. So just like any of these trades, of course, but I think electrician is a good one. It's just, I think, going to be more competitive and hard to get into, but it's going to be good stability. If you're able to get into a union apprenticeship, become a journeyman electrician, that's going to be an awesome career. Number 5 is going to be lineman. Lineman is probably going to be like the most competitive to get into in the Southeast area. In Detroit, we're looking at IBW Local 17. Very good stability from my understanding. In Detroit, there's a lot of work for that. I mean, their infrastructure in Detroit, Michigan has been around for a long time. So I think they're always trying, like, there's always work there, like, because they're always rebuilding the system. They're always trying to improve the infrastructure there. There's a lot of work there for linemen. If we look at the scale as of June 24th of 2024, we're looking at, on a 40-hour work week, about $108,480 a year. Of course, that's on 40 hours of work. That is going to be your probably highest paying trade, but it's also the most competitive, and it's going to be the hardest probably to get into. But I also don't want to tell you guys these things like, oh, it's hard to get into, it's super competitive. Like, don't try to do it. I think, hey, if you want to become an electrician or a lineman or one of these competitive trades, you just try it. Also, the thing about the lineman is you're going to have to get more certifications. The barrier to entry is going to be a little bit harder. You're going to need that Class A CDL with no auto restrictions. Maybe a couple other certifications that will help, a OSHA 10, First Aid CPR certification, maybe even a flagging certification. Those sorts of things are going to help you, I think. And then you can always just go down in the union hall, IBW Local 17, and go sign the out-of-work books as a groundman. And then you could look up albat.org, and that's going to be the apprenticeship, the outside apprenticeship for the Michigan and those surrounding states, Ohio and all those states. I'll pop up a map here. You can see the states that are included within the albat apprenticeship. So go on albat. You can go see and learn a lot more information on there about the lineman trade, about the lineman apprenticeship. There's also, I think, a substation apprenticeship, substation technician that you can apply for there as well, which is a great career. It kind of goes hand in hand with the lineman apprenticeship. I think the barrier to entry to become a substation tech is probably a little less competitive because more people want to become a lineman than a substation tech, just different kind of scopes of work. But there's the opportunity out there. I'm also going to sprinkle in here Ironworkers. I did a podcast with Brad Pierce Jr., who is a apprenticeship. I don't know what his exact role is with the apprenticeship there at Michigan for IBW, or not IBW, Ironworkers Local 25. I'll pop that up in one of these corners here so you can go check out that podcast episode. Very good, informative episode that you guys can check out if you want to become an ironworker in Detroit in that southeast area. Ironworkers, if we look at their scale as of September 22nd of 2023, it says that they're making $69,700 a year on 40 hours of work week, but I don't think they're only working 40 hours a week. And like I said, this is just like on paper on your paycheck, not to mention the total package because it is union. There will be more money there to be made. Just on paper, that's what that scale looks like. Those are kind of 6 trades. I'm also going to talk about sheet metal. Sheet metal is a big one because sheet metal guys, everything that needs sheet metal, HVAC ducting is a big one. A lot of sheet metal in commercial industrial facilities. So sheet metal workers, you can look up local sheet metal local 292. And as of 10-21-2022, their scale was $77,060 a year on 40-hour work week. Of course, there's probably overtime potential there as well. Most skilled trades have the overtime potential. I will say that from my experience, that might be 10 hours a week, so you might be 50 hours a week. That might be more. There might be per diem. There might be chances to get over scale. There might be, government jobs that are paying more money for that job. So like there's these other things that can cause you to make more money in that trade. I know there's overtime potential. So the stability, I feel like in most of these trades are going to be really good as well. Those are really 7 trades that I personally would look into if I was going to try to get into a skilled trade of blue collar world in Southeast Michigan, is those trades that I just kind of went over that I mentioned. Carpentry being like probably the easiest one to get into from my research, from what I've asked around about. And then those other ones mentioned as well. So for you, Hayden, If you're looking to get into trades, research those. Do some more research on those ones I just mentioned. Go on the union website, call the union, ask them, hey, what does these aptitude tests looks like? What does, the scope of work look like? Because they're going to have more knowledge on what it's looking like in today's climate in the society right now in that area. I can't give you exactly what the workload looks like, but they're going to have a better idea. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Yeah, I would just look into the apprenticeships. That's honestly what I would do. That would be my first step. Looking into those requirements to apply for an apprenticeship with any one of those trades. Like I said, lineman's going to be the harder one to do because you're going to need that Class A CDL. You're going to need probably a couple certifications to be an applicable person to apply for the lineman apprenticeship. But those other trades, I don't really see that. I think you just need to be 18 or even 17 in some cases, probably be able to pass an aptitude test to get an interview, and then it just becomes a waiting game. And eventually, hopefully, good chance that you'll be able to get into an apprenticeship, start learning, start earning while learning, and build a career in the blue collar skilled trade in Southeast Michigan.